Hey everyone, and welcome to Baking with Foxhallow Kitchen. I'm Dave and I'm going to be guest hosting this episode. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to show you a take on an American classic. This is one of my favorite recipes and I hope it's going to be one of yours as well. Today we're making apple raisin pie. So if you're ready to get started, let's have some fun. First thing we need to do here is make our crust. I'm starting with 2.5 cups of flour in the food processor. To that I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of salt and 2 teaspoons of sugar and then 2 sticks of butter. Now the key to any flaky pastry, including this pie crust, is we want our butter to stay solid throughout the process. So what I'm going to do is put this in here. Now I cut the butter into tiny pieces and then throw it into the freezer for a little bit to make sure it's nice and cold. That way it doesn't melt into the dough. It doesn't melt into the flour and get the flour all sticky. And we're just going to throw this in here right here. And put the lid on. And we're going to zap this with the food processor for a little bit. Okay, I'm going to take that off, and then we have a nice crust. Now this is still a little dry to be able to make a pie crust out of it, so what I do is I have some ice water standing by, and I'm going to throw a little bit of water into it. Not very much, just a couple spoonfuls. And we're going to try it again. Just zap it a little bit. Okay, that's perfect. And then we're going to take this out. And put it in a bowl. Now you can also use a pastry cutter to cut up your butter into the flour. It's just a lot more labor intensive. I like the food processor because it works very quickly. And then what we're going to do is we're going to mash this together into our dough. It's still too crumbly. What it needs is a little more water. The ice water keeps it nice and cold. Okay, so now I have this dough ball, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to break this into 2 pieces for a top and bottom crust. It's okay if one is a little bit bigger than the other. We kind of want that actually. And 2 little dough balls. And then I'm going to flour my surface here. And make 2 little discs of dough. And then what I'm going to do with these, I'm going to coat them in plastic wrap to keep them moist and throw them in the refrigerator for at least 2 hours. It's sometimes good to do this the night before and let your dough get in there and soak up all those glutens and get to where it's nice and stretchy so you can roll it out. Okay, so now we're going to make our filling. We're going to start with 2 tablespoons of butter melted over medium heat in a large saucepan. And then we're going to stir in about 4 pounds of apples. Make sure you use apples that are firm and a little on the tart side. I've already cut these and sliced them and everything. We're going to throw these in here. With any kind of pie filling, it's better to have a little too much than not enough. So that's 4 pounds of apples cut up and sliced, and then I'm going to add a cup of raisins. A half cup of brown sugar. A 1/4 cup of white sugar. A half teaspoon of cinnamon. 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg, and last about 4 teaspoons rather of cornstarch. And then we're just going to stir this up as best we can. We'll take a little while to get this heated up. And we're going to heat this over medium heat until the apples start to get a little tender and you get a nice little syrup over top of everything. Okay? That takes about 20 minutes or so. You don't want to overcook it, just enough that the apples are starting to get a tiny bit tender, and that's it. Alright? Okay, so now we have a nice syrupy glaze over everything, and the apples are just starting to get a little bit tender. So now's the time to take it off the heat and let it sit and cool back to room temperature, which takes about a half an hour. And then we're ready to assemble our pie at that time. Okay, since our pie filling is done, we're going to start to assemble our pie. First thing I'm going to do is roll out the bottom crust. See if this goes well. Just like to flip this over again and again. Keep putting flour on it. Okay, and once this is about the size of our pie plate, we're going to go ahead and stick it in there. Very carefully lift this up. And there'll be a bit extra, of course. And once I've got it in there, I'm going to cut off the edges a little bit. Just running a knife around the outside. And that's our bottom pie crust. So here's our pie crust. Next we're going to put the filling in there that we've set aside. Get that nice and stirred up. I'm going to get it packed down as good as possible. Right to the edges. There. Okay, now we'll make our top crust. Now I've rolled out my top crust the same way as I did the bottom. It doesn't have to be quite as big, but the one thing you need in the top crust is you need to have air holes to let some steam out. So I just like to put little cutouts in there for that. So I'll put a little heart cutout in the middle and a couple on the sides. Get it centered, more or less. And I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to cut a little bit of the edges off. It doesn't have to be quite so close on the top one because I'm going to fold it under a little bit. There it is. And then I need to seal this top, so what I do here is I fold the top piece under a little bit and stretch it out and smash it together so that I get a nice seal on the top. Okay, and then the last thing I'm going to do is scallop the edges a little bit so that it looks a little nicer. And the only way to do that is just take your fingers like this and squeeze and just keep going around the whole way around. And there it is. So now we have the end of our pie. And this is ready to put in the oven. Okay, so we're ready to put this in the oven here. What I've done is I put some foil around the outside edges to keep them from getting overly brown, and it's on a pizza pan so that I can catch any drip or any spillage over the edge. And now it goes in the oven. Very gently here. Okay, and we're gonna let that bake for about an hour and check on it then. Okay, so our timer just went off. We're ready to take this out of the oven. Let's take a look at it. There we go. Get rid of that foil. And there we have it. Apple Raisin Pie. Alright, I want to thank everybody for tuning in today, and I'm going to leave you with this inspirational friendship quote from Walter Winchell. A real friend is one who walks in when the rest of the world walks out. So see you, everybody.
And if you enjoyed my video here today, give it a like and make sure to hit the subscribe button for updates on when I post more videos. So hope to see you soon.